I wanted to just throw out a couple of questions, and anyone on the panel can answer. That was beautiful. I'm still like thinking about what you just said. So just a couple of questions. Thinking about kind of the role of sort of cross-cultural organizing and not just amongst farm workers and what we saw in this film, but just amongst workers overall and how that's relevant today. Or if you have any thoughts, like you mentioned, Juana, about just lessons learned about this younger generation or sort of youth that are here, or second, third generation folks about that can take from the Manong generation and the farm worker history. So anything in that vein. And then we'll open it up to questions and answers after that.
Just one thing, when you talk about cross-cultural organizing, because I think it has a direct impact on what we see in the film. And that question I asked, why were they so good at it? Okay, you think about it. You know, the Philippines, that they came from, is nothing like the Philippines that we know. Okay? They were coming from the geographical divisions that created all of the different cultures and languages of the Philippines were still in place. You know, it was a very rural country. So, you know what, if you came from Ilocos Norte, that was where you came from, and you spoke Ilocano, okay? If you came from, and of course, a lot of them were Ilocanos because, you know, Ilocanos like to travel and be adventurous and come places. But they spoke different languages. You know, and the fact is, in order to unite into their work crews and to unite to form a union, they had to overcome cultural divisions as Filipinos. I mean, I know my dad spoke a whole bunch of different dialects, plus Spanish, plus some Chinese, plus a little Japanese, plus whatever else he had to get along, because that's what you had to do when you were working. And so I think that gave them an advantage when it came to organizing with other people. I'll just tell you my dad's story about when he first arrived. You know, like Andy was saying, they were brainwashed into thinking that this was going to be the land of opportunity. You know, a lot of them came here with ideas that they were going to make all this money, they were going to go to college, they were going to go home as rich men. Well, my dad got off the boat in Portland, and they were met by labor contractors in their buses, in their pickups. And they got into the truck and they said, we're taking you someplace to eat. And they went to this little rundown little diner, and he went in and he looked around. He said, I walked in the door and all I saw was black and brown faces. And at that moment I knew that I was not going to be going to college, and I was not going to become a doctor or a lawyer and go home.
Well, I think for me, the work that I do now at API Chaya, we work with marginalized community. And I think when we talk about it, whatever experience we do, whatever happened to us will happen to everybody. I think, I feel like our struggle, we do something good now that will benefit other community and also the young, you know, the generation coming. So part of the things that I do, and it might not be related to this, but working on the prevention of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. One of the things that we did with our former state representative, Velma Viloria, I think everybody knows her. She's a Filipina, first Filipina that was actually being elected as state representative. Not only in the state of Washington, I think, but so when we are working with and this is also workers, because a lot of the victim of human trafficking is labor, and this is where we focus on. We are the first state that actually passed the legislation mirror to the federal making human trafficking as, you know, what do you call that? I'm blanking out. Human trafficking is, a crime. So,
it's not a crime anyway.
yeah. And so I think, you know, for us, hopefully, when we did that in 2003, now 49 state follows, and they have a better one than we have. But we're continuing to really look into the policies in terms of making lives for everybody. So these are, I think for me, I see that what our works will benefit everybody else. And also I think for us, we can advocate for other community that don't have the voice now. A lot of other minority or marginalized community don't have the voice, and I think we are the voice. And I just hope that we can continue the work that we do to make sure that everybody, especially marginalized community, will benefit in the long run.
Richard Gertiza is in the audience. Rich, would you raise your hand there? I grew up with Richard, and he is from Wapata, Washington. He is now the executive director of the Cannery Workers Union, Longshoremen's Union. I just think how remarkable these men were that were in, the Delano Manongs. And those guys, Larry Leong spoke about 7 languages. And I think that he had this experience of labor organizing. He got into the United States in 1929. His first labor strike was the Monroe, Washington's led a strike in 1930. And I think that the thing that why this film is so important is because here's a question: how many of you have worked in the fields? 3 or 4 of you. How many have you ever have lived in a labor camp? See, that experience is gone with many people, and so in our community in Eastern Washington, for example, we have 5 generations of Filipinos who have lived there. 5 generations, and I tell you, the last 2 have never worked in the farms. This generation of men is slowly passing away, or quickly passing away, and so it comes to me that it's so important to try to write those stories, get those that history down quickly, because our history is going to be lost unless we talk to those men. Cross-cultural, it's today's workforce, and what I see in the cross-cultural issue is that there is a commonality. There's a commonality. Juan Antonio Vargas is facing deportation or having to face the issue of being deported because he's a Filipino who stayed in the United States too long, and now his visa has gone away. And there are so many of those in our community, and so the issue is a commonality among people of color of the issues. That's the same thing that Larry talked about when we were trying to when he came to Western, and there were various minority organizations, and he said, that's fine and good. Learn your culture, learn the exploits and the issues that your people had to go through. But there are commonalities that you're going to have to organize on. You're going to have to learn what your common issues are, organize well. And I think that's the book that the perfect book for the title of Larry's book, Organize Well. By the way, I have a 1960 statement, and what they basically were looking, and it's not rocket science. Those workers, those agricultural workers in the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, they were just wanting the basic rights, because in 1936 the National Labor Relations Act was enacted by Congress, and that included everybody except for farm workers. And so the goals were basic, and boy, when you look at that document, I could see Larry's language in there. I mean, there's no rocket science to it. It's you know, it's written for understanding by the people who are in the fields. So yeah, we have commonalities and we have to work on those.
I want to make sure we can open up to questions if anybody has any. I'm happy to bring